Welcome to Human Potential at Work, the show where we explore social impact, inclusion, and empowerment of everyone, including persons with disabilities. Your host is Deborah Rue, CEO of Rue Global Impact, and co-founder and chairwoman of Billion Strong, an identity and empowerment organization designed to bring billions of voices of persons with disabilities together. To join the global community and to donate to the cause, visit billion-strong.org. That's billion-strong.org. And now, on to the episode.
Hello, everyone. My name is Deborah Rue, and I'm the CEO of Rue Global Impact and the Executive Chair of Billion Strong. Today, my guest is somebody that I just love. He's a mentor to me. He's a friend. I have learned so much from him. So I love friends where you can learn from each other. So Dr. LaMondre Pough is joining us again, and he is the CEO of Billion Strong. And we're going to talk today about Black History Month and celebrating Billion Strong. So real quick, before I turn it over to you, let me remember to do a visual description. So I have the Billion Strong banner behind me because we're so proud of www.billionstrong.org. But I am a Caucasian, a white woman with very gray hair, and I have purple highlights in it. And I have on a black sweater with flower buttons and a flowery dress. And I have on brown glasses. So over to you, LaMondre.
Thank you so much, Deborah. I am LaMondre Pough, the CEO of Billion Strong, and I am a Black man with a bald head, full beard. I'm wearing a blue striped shirt with a white collar, and I'm sitting in my home office with a blue light shining behind me and some artwork scattered around. And it is absolutely an honor to be with you, Deborah, again. And the intro that you gave me, you always talk about me being a mentor and all those kinds of things. And it is absolutely 100% reciprocated, because you have taught me so much in terms of thinking differently and elevating the view of what's possible for all of us. And you've not done that just through saying. It's actually me watching you demonstrate that and walk it out. And that's a scary road to take, but it's also one of the bravest things I've ever seen in my life. And I am honored to be a student of yours and just watching how this thing is done. And so I appreciate you for being my mentor and my friend as well. And thank you for having me.
We have to be mentors to each other. We have to see each other. And it was interesting, right before we went on air, you made the mistake of telling me a story. And I'm like, oh, good. I want you to tell that story on air. I know that you've been on the show multiple times. I talk about you all the time, but I am just really proud that you accepted the CEO leadership of Billion Strong, because the other day somebody was telling me why we couldn't do it. She gave me, and she was a person with disabilities, and she gave me so many reasons why we couldn't do it. And they were all really good grounded reasons too, LaMondre. And I said to her, I hear you, and you're so right. And yet we're still going to do it. We're still going to do it. And
Right.
so it's just, I know it's a ridiculous undertaking. I know it is. Come on, you can't bring together 1.2 to 1.6 billion people. I don't know.
Yeah.
Why don't you move aside and let's see if we can do it. So let's talk a little bit first about, just remind the audience about you. And I also want you to tell that story. You are very open about being a man of faith. I know that you actually have a background in ministry.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I know that has been a real blessing to me as your friend. But I just want the audience to have a better understanding of who the man LaMondre is, but also a little bit of your walk.
Absolutely. And I appreciate the opportunity to share this part of my life as well. I am a person with a disability. I have spinal muscular atrophy. And as a result of spinal muscular atrophy, I have very little movement of my extremities, my hands, my feet. I'm a full-time wheelchair user. I require assistance with all of my activities of daily living, bathing, feeding, dressing, all of those kinds of things I need assistance with. And I have an incredible life. I have a really incredible life. In fact, most of the time when people ask me, I say, my life is dope. All right. I need you to understand that. And I'm a longtime advocate in terms of social justice, in terms of disability rights and disability justice. And I just embrace the concept that the good of humanity will always win out, even in times of peril, even in times when things look scary. And right now it's a scary time. For a lot of us, I still believe that the good of humanity will win. And I think that it's important that we just bring whatever it is that we can bring, that we offer whatever it is that we can offer. And the thing that I can offer is my voice. The thing that I can give is an ability to communicate through spoken words that somehow impact people and that in some way can inspire them to do things that make the world a better place. And I'll tell you a little bit of my background. So I am a speaker. That's what I do. That's what my passion is. And I believe that my purpose in life is to help people live a big, full, authentic life on purpose. I'm going to say that again. My purpose is to help people live a big, full, authentic life on purpose. And the way that I do that is through communicating. The way that I do that is helping people see possibilities and helping the lights come on. There was a time, though, when I was really going through a real rough patch. I was newly divorced, struggling financially. Things were just going all wrong. My mother, who's a pastor, was having an event with her ministry. And she asked me to attend because I'm not involved in her ministry as a member or anything, but she asked me to attend and I came. And there was a speaker there. And the speaker didn't know me. She didn't tell him anything about me. But during his time of speaking, he looked over at me and he just said, "Speak." And he was like, "Nah, it's time for you to speak. You've done a lot in the background before." Again, this man knew me from no one. Okay. And it's time for you to speak. And my response was very simple. I simply said, "Okay." Now, okay, even though it was a simple and short answer, it had major ramifications for me because what that okay represented for me was a complete commitment to just doing that, because that's where I felt powerful. That's where I felt strong. But that's also where I've had the least opportunity to really share, at least at that time, to the masses. And I just started saying yes. I started saying yes to engagements. I started saying yes to opportunities or requests that typically would have been like, why would I do that? That doesn't make any sense. But I started saying yes. And as a result, just to shorten the story a little bit, as a result, I'm here. As a result of saying yes, I have spoken to organizations and groups around the world, even in a time where we could not travel, when we could not do the things that we would have typically done. And I will tell you, just simply saying okay and saying yes has made that difference. And I'm again honored to be on this walk.
And I also want to say, because that was such a brilliant answer, that it is good that we have figured out as a society that we can use things like Zoom and other platforms, Google, to have meetings like this.
Yeah.
Because yes, everybody wants LaMondre to speak because he's a brilliant speaker. He's so inspiring. It's amazing. But the reality also is that LaMondre couldn't go to certain countries to speak because so many venues are not accessible to power wheelchairs. The reality is that when LaMondre travels, maybe the airline will accidentally break his wheelchair and then he gets to the location and, oh, too bad for that. Or
let's correct that. About 85% of the time, the airline damaged it.
I don't know how the rest of us would think if 85% of the time we traveled, the airline was damaging things that were critical to our
damaging
lives. Damaging you, because this is a personal thing, right? Why don't you take your glasses? I'm going to grab your glasses off your head and I'm going to mash them up and throw them away.
And say, don't worry about it. The airline will pay for that.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Just make do until, So the reason why I bring that up is not to insult the airlines, but to say our world is not accessible to you. And our world, it does not value caregivers. And our world thinks it's too hard to include people with disabilities in the workforce and in the education system. And I don't want to be, what you've been called before, an angry cripple.
Yeah.
What? And I do want you to talk about that. But I don't want to just focus on the negative, but there are some harsh realities for our community that you've had to live. And so I appreciate your light, and I appreciate your voice, and I appreciate your leadership. But I also understand some of the realities you and others are dealing with, and it's just not okay. I also am hoping that you might tell the story about the time you had to call 911, only because once again, I want to have a conversation about every aspect of inclusion. We can't talk about disability inclusion if technology and websites aren't accessible to us. We can't talk about true inclusion if you can't travel because your wheelchair is going to be damaged, or when you get there, it's totally inaccessible and all the bathrooms are on the third floor. And I know that sounds ridiculous, and yet things like that are true. I know that Rosemary, your CAO of Billion Strong, when she travels because of her disability, she can never travel any place where she can't hold her urine, because she can't get up in the middle of the flight and go to the bathroom. And so she doesn't drink. She has all these routines she has to do to make sure she didn't have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the flight. I go to the bathroom all the time in the middle of the flight, constantly up. Anyway, there is not inclusion. There is not true inclusion. And so I was just wondering if you wouldn't tell a couple of, interests, only because you help us learn by your stories, but
Absolutely.
And I know you need caregivers, which, by the way, we all do. Sometimes we're caregivers to each other. Sometimes we need caregivers. But I think people don't understand what it means when you have the caregiving support that you need.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll tell you, we always talk about living independently, and we always talk about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and all of those kinds of things. And it's a lie. It's a lie. No one is truly independent. We live in a system of interdependency. There's a song that no man is an island. That is the God honest truth. No man is an island. And I rely on my caregivers, people who come into my home multiple times a day, every day, to assist me in living the life that I choose. And see, there's a distinction in that, okay? There's a big distinction in that. Caregivers for me help me live the life that I choose. And unfortunately, what happens is we have a tendency to make it a medical thing, or to make it a I don't know, almost mechanical thing. But the truth is, these beautiful people who come into my home, who help me live out my choices, they are integral parts of my existence. They are integral parts of my life. And sometimes it's difficult to really express just exactly what this relationship is. But it's important. And not only is it important for me, because it's not just that these people are doing things for me, but it's a relationship that's symbiotic. It's a relationship where as much as I get from them, I also give a great deal to them as well. So we fit hand in hand. But society in general has diminished and not even recognized the value of what caregivers bring to the world. Here in the US, where I live, we have a bad problem of those who are professional caregivers who actually get paid to give care, where they're grossly underpaid. When they're grossly underpaid, it makes no sense to me that someone who has committed themselves to a profession to help improve and maintain a good quality of life for someone else cannot earn enough to make a good quality life for themselves. And it just doesn't make any sense. But there's a whole nother layer to that. What about the caregivers who are not paid at all?
Mm-hmm.
What about the caregivers who actually not only are they not paid, their families are plunged into poverty because they have chosen to care for a loved one? And what's interesting is what typically is presented is the cost, is the expense. If there was assistance, if the government assisted with that, or if a company or an organization assisted with that, the massive amounts of money that it will cost. But first of all, what about the massive amounts of money that it's costing because of non-participation in the systems
Right.
that would allow these families to actually create revenue, that would allow these families to actually participate in the economic system. What about what is missing because that talent is pulled away? So there is, then you think about it. What about the emotional cost that's there as well?
And it is a big cost.
So it's huge. I was actually speaking with a good friend of mine. You know who I'm talking about, Allie, Miss Wheelchair, North Carolina, and I believe soon to be Miss America, Miss Wheelchair America. I really do believe that, and she's amazing. So
Yes.
keep an eye on Allie Ingersoll. But we were talking the other day, and we were talking about attendant care cost and what that means for our life. We were thinking at the point where I'm at, it would cost probably about $65,000 a year for me to get okay care. Right. But for me to really get the care that I need and people be paid well for doing it, it's going to cost almost $100,000 to do that. There's a woman that I know in Los Angeles who is a entertainment lawyer who has 24-hour care. Her attendant care costs are over $120,000 a year that come out of her pocket. So for families, for caregivers, and for those who receive care, this, honestly, it is really a crisis situation, but it's a crisis situation that people just grin and bear it because they have. But we have to create a platform and do something about this, because this is really about allowing people to live and really have that opportunity to pursue those inalienable rights that we so hold closely to us. So it's a serious situation.
It is. And you know how, when you think about the situation, because once again, I know you because I've had the pleasure to work with you for many years. And there are times when your caregivers aren't there, your hand falls off the mouse, and then you have to wait till one of the caregivers comes in, or
Right.
there have been multiple times when something has happened. And it makes me so sad because you're just stuck. You're stuck. And
Right.
so I want you to tell the story about what happened. And if you don't mind, never tell me.
No, it's fine. I've got a million. I've got a million stories about.
But do you know which one
happening.
this is? What this one is that I'm talking about? The back something on me.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But also then after you do that, I would like you to maybe explore. I want to tell you this so I don't forget because I'm older. I want you to explore what you just talked about, caregiving and the mess. And once again, you can make more working at McDonald's or Taco Bell than you can caring for a human being. But how does the treatment of people with disabilities tie into the Black History Month? Yeah,
absolutely.
But I want you to tell the story first about this this thing.
That was probably the most loaded question I have ever been asked. But I got you.
I know you do.
Yeah. So the story. Okay. So the story that Deborah is referring to, I live by myself. I live completely by myself, and I love it that way. I do. But once my attendant leaves at night, I am in that position until 7 the next morning, until my next attendant comes. And one night, it was probably about 1:00 in the morning. I couldn't sleep. I'm watching television, but all of a sudden I feel like a small tickling coming up my leg. Now I can't move. Once I'm in that position, that's it. I'm in that position until my person comes. But I felt this tickling, right? Now I'm a little bit freaked out. Because obviously this is not sweat trickling down. This is moving up my leg. But I was thinking, okay, it'll stop. Even if it's a little critter, it'll go somewhere and we'll be fine. It didn't. It explored the whole lower portion of my body. But even though it was tickling, it was there, it was tickling, freaking out a little bit, but I was like, okay, it's not biting me or anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just power through it and go to sleep. This is what was running through my head. Go to sleep. I actually began to drift away to sleep. Then it started tickling on my back. I was like, okay, it's moved up. It's on my back. But I'm still good with this. I'm still okay. I'm good. Then all of a sudden, I started feeling pinching. Then I started feeling burrowing. This thing started to burrow into my skin. So I was like, no way, this is not happening. Can't do that. I called 911 and the ambulance came to my house and I told them what was going on. They were so nice. It was okay, cool. We're gonna see what's up. Pull the cover back. Don't see anything. Don't see anything. Don't say anything. I said, I promise you. I swear it's there. I swear it's there. And then finally he leaned over. He said, I see it. And he grabbed it. This thing was literally burrowing into my skin. And he grabbed it. I can't even remember what insect it was.
It was a centipede, wasn't it?
It was something with multiple legs that burrowed. It was something. It
sounded so horrifying to me. And right. So why do we need caregivers around the? Yeah.
Well, I would tell you. I will tell you again. I love living by myself, and if I could afford 24-hour attendant care services, I would probably do that. I would have people coming in shifts to do that. But again, it's really a money situation when you think about it. And as I was giving you some of the numbers that I was talking about before, one of the things we realized is that for someone like myself who wants to be gainfully employed, a small business owner or CEO of an organization, you have this threshold of what versus what you can earn and still receive services versus what is over the limit. And honestly, the way that it's set up, and this is me saying this as gently as I can, the way that it's set up, you will be just above poverty if you want to receive services. However, if you go above that, those services stop. And you won't be able to effectively get the care that you need unless you're making probably about $300,000.
Right.
So between, let's just say 27,000 and 300,000 is no man's land. Unless it's a situation where you set up trusts and all this kind of stuff, right? And honestly, there are resources out there that can effectively help people do that. But I will tell you, it is not easy.
No.
And it is not, the information is not easily digestible for people who are not familiar with those kinds of systems. So let's go on to the concept of what we can do, right? So one of the things that I am big about is constantly and consistently telling the story, constantly and consistently making people aware of what this world looks like and helping people understand that the money exists to do it. It is just about where we have prioritized it. And when we talk about this fight, for me, and I'm talking about for me, and I know that this is a situation for millions of other people.
Oh, billions.
For me personally, though, the fight is to stay out of nursing homes, is to stay out of institutions. And there's a great story that's out there now about a man who had that same fight. And he did what I call the great escape, escaping the system. John Morrow, I think is how you pronounce his last name. He owns a media company. He's now a millionaire a few times over. And he did it through sheer smarts, talent, grit, and work, and being brave. So if you get the opportunity, please check his story out because he inspired me. And when I say inspire, I'm not talking about the disability porn stuff, even though he is a person with a disability. I'm inspired by his smarts. I'm inspired by his tenacity. I'm inspired by his business acumen. I'm inspired by the confidence he had to bet on himself. And so find his story and check it out. But I believe that his story has inspired me in such a way that not only does it give me more insight and confirmation of making the great escape, I want to pave a way for others to make the great escape. So check out that story. And that's one of the things that we're working on now, is figuring out how do we give an amplifier to this situation and amplify the voices that have been fighting for it. And we have had some significant people that have made a difference in that way, and we're still making a difference. One of those persons is a woman by the name of Lois Curtis. And some of you may know her better as LC in the Olmstead versus LMC Supreme Court decision, a case that basically affirmed that people with disabilities have the right to live in the least restrictive environments. And LC, since you asked the question about how does this play into Black history, LC, or Lois, is a woman with intellectual disabilities as well as mental health issues. And at the age of 11, she was placed into the Georgia Regional Hospital, which is a mental institution for people with disabilities. When she became an adult, she wanted to get out. But because of the way the state of Georgia system was set up, basically, they told her, no, you're a person in a state hospital and it's too expensive. And if we did that, it would fundamentally alter our service delivery. So no. But Lois was persistent about wanting to get out. She connected with an attorney, Sue Jameson. Sue Jameson took on the case. They added another plaintiff, Elaine Wilson, and they won. The state of Georgia appealed it, made its way all the way up to the Supreme Court. And she was pivotal in what is called the most important decision for people with disabilities in U.S. history. And Lois Curtis is an African-American woman with an intellectual disability. But honestly, you don't hear her name touted as much when you talk about U.S. history. And the reason that's important, an important distinction, because the disability rights movement in the U.S. is U.S. history. The ADA is not just a protection for people with disabilities. It's a protection for all of us. Mm-hmm. The 1973 Rehab Act was not just about people with disabilities. It was about all of us. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about U.S. history, when we talk about recognizing those that have made significant contributions, why is it that U.S. history has this thing of alienating or not mentioning the people who really made significant impact? The truth is, yes, Lois did have to have assistance in terms of navigating the system. Her contribution really was being brave enough and bold enough to say, I want out.
Yes.
And I believe that when you do that, when you put that kind of demand on, the universe conspires to make that demand happen. And that's what happened with her. So I honor people like Lois Curtis. I honor people that really put their needs, their lives, their concerns, their aspirations on the line in order to not only secure their place, but also the places of so many others. And I think it's important that we pause and recognize those who did that. I think it's important that we recognize the diversity of people that have done that. This month is Black History Month. And so this is the month that we pause to recognize the contributions and achievements of Black Americans in the U.S. as it relates to U.S. history. And we need to do that in so many other areas as well. We need to do that in so many other areas as well. And I will tell you that Billion Strong is committed to recognizing and celebrating the diversity and all of the various contributions that so many other people has made. My thing is, we are not going to promote a whitewashed history. We are going to promote a human-washed history so that we can really see people that have made a difference in all of our lives. And so this month is Black History Month. So yes, we're going to be talking about our heroes with disabilities who are African-American or who are Black, and also the allies who have contributed in that. So be on the lookout for that. So we'll be promoting that. But we're going to do so many other things as well. And I think it's important that we celebrate all of us.
I agree. And also, LaMondre, and I've talked about this on air because we are just so thrilled, but LinkedIn stepped up and selected me as one of their creators to accelerate specifically about Billion Strong, because they sent out an email to creators and said, give us your ideas. And I said, we're building Billion Strong. We'd love to help. And they have been amazing.
They have been.
Especially shout out to Victoria Taylor at LinkedIn, a senior editor. We love her. She has given me, I thought I knew how to use LinkedIn. Wow. She's taught me so many things, and really encouraged me to do caregiver conversations because it's something we're so passionate about. And sometimes I will start the conversation, especially because LinkedIn has graciously got me in this program where they're accelerating it, but also LinkedIn has really gotten behind your work. And I loved how when they were celebrating Black History Month, all month, obviously, but they promoted you and they included you with all these other leaders. And I loved seeing the intersections. I want to see Black women. I want to see Black men. I want to see Black individuals that don't identify as he or she. I want to see Black individuals with disabilities. I want to see Black members from the LGBT community. I want to see diversity in our Black leaders, our African Americans.
And I would tell you, what's amazing to me. First of all, kudos to LinkedIn. And I am so to really be a part of just being able to share the ideas. And I'm going to tell you what's so important to me and why the connection with LinkedIn is so important. First of all, we recognize that LinkedIn is probably the most engaged audience that's out there. And these are people who are specifically in areas of business and employment and the pursuits in those endeavors, which is a huge issue for people with disabilities globally. So the ability to communicate with that audience, these messages, is just an incredible opportunity to share and shed some light in situations that have been whispered about, but really have not been explored deeply in terms of actual making a living, in terms of production, in terms of really a concentrated effort on that. LinkedIn, it's amazing. It's amazing. And I'm honored that we have this relationship with them. And I think it also gives us the opportunity to really help people see what diversity really looks like, what diversity really means, and what does it mean to be inclusive. And I have seen them take steps that really speak to inclusion. And I think that, in other words, I'll put it to you this way, just to make it really simple to understand. LinkedIn invited us to a dance, and they made sure that we could hear the music. They make sure that we could access the dance floor. They make certain that we could actually participate fully in it. And so guess what? We're dancing. We're participating. And that's what this is about. And I will tell you, when you talked about the diversity of Black leadership and particularly Black people with disabilities, I must say it. We celebrate diversity. We celebrate inclusion. We celebrate accomplishment. So this month, because it's Black History Month, this is where we're focusing. And we've got a rich history and we have a rich pool to pull from that are typically not recognized for their leadership. But guess what? There's some amazing women out there as well. There's some amazing people from Hispanic or Latino backgrounds. There are so many amazing groups out there that we just don't ever get a chance to talk about their identity, really. Well, we're going to talk about it. And another thing, and we talked about the caregiving aspect of it. So we're creating a new podcast for Billion Strong. It's called Strong Conversations. We'll be launching it in a few weeks. But during one of my sessions and speaking to the production staff, I was speaking to one of my producers, and we were talking about caregiving. And we were talking about, when we talk about the community of people with disabilities, we often leave out the circle of support in terms of having a voice. Right. And the reason this person could speak with some authority on this is because he is not a person with a disability, but he is the younger brother of someone who has a disability. And we were simply just talking about impact and influence and all of those kinds of things. And some of the things that he shared with me from his experience really opened me up, even the more so, to expanding the definition of the community of people with disabilities and understanding that our voices are enlarged and empowered and our influence much more broadly impacted when we actually include all of those who are within our community. And so it really helped to change somewhat even of my perspective of how we handle this and how we deal with this. And this is what Strong Conversations is going to be about. I often, the way that I've said it, and this is the first time that I'm saying this publicly, wow, the Strong Conversations is going to be a safe place to talk about the tough issues that surround the human experience. The show is not about disability itself, but it is about the exploration of the human experience through the lens of disability. So our goal with it really is to talk to people with lived experiences that can talk about the ups, the downs, the good and the bad in a real open way. And what I hope is that people who listen to the show, that they're inspired by what they hear, that it causes people to think differently. I actually hope you get mad a few times. I hope that we have some disagreements, but the whole idea is to elevate the conversation so that we can think beyond accessibility and regulations and policy, but get to the point of that this is about the human experience. And I believe that's one of the things that LinkedIn is helping us do as well.
I agree. I love LinkedIn, and we're on all of the platforms, but I just get the best engagement. And now we're doing polls and we're doing newsletter. I'm shocked by our first newsletter. Wow, I love LinkedIn and I love Victoria Taylor. But I know that I've kept you too long because I could talk to you forever. But one more time, tell us how we can help you with Billion Strong.
Absolutely. First of all, go to our website, www.billion-strong.org. That's www.billion-strong.org and join the movement. When we talk about the movement, this movement is a global identity movement by people with disabilities. It's grassroots. And not only is it grassroots, when I say by people with disability, that does not mean that it is exclusive to people with disabilities. What that means is that if you are a person with disabilities, if you love someone with a disability, if you're simply a supporter of the platforms and issues of people with disabilities, you are a part of the movement. So join up with this because we are stronger together and we can speak with a unified voice and really create an impact. And I'll tell you this, I know that the goals that we have are big and they're, as they say, hairy and audacious. But the truth is, and I also know that a lot of people don't believe that we could do it. But guess what?
I'm going to.
Somebody also said that there's no way that you can have a full conversation, hearing somebody's voice when you're not with them, when they're not in the room. But somebody created the telephone. Somebody said there's no way that you can travel faster in a horse and survive it. But somebody created an automobile that can do that. So while there may be a lot of people who say that's going to be impossible, you can't do it, I believe it. I know that it's going to be hard. But while it's hard, watch us do it.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Watch us do it. So
watch us and join us do it so we can all do it together.
Absolutely.
If we all supported each other, if we employed each other, if we bought for entrepreneurs with disabilities, think what we can accomplish. So
absolutely.
Please join Dr. LaMondre Pough at www.billion-strong.org. And we need funders, we need volunteers, we need global advisors, we need more country partners, but we need you. And thank you, LinkedIn. Thank you, LinkedIn.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, just really quickly, there's so many different ways to get involved, right? But the three things that we really need, and this is nothing new, but it's your time, your talent, and your treasure. So volunteer with us. Share whatever expertise you have with us that you can share, and make a donation. Time, talent, treasure. That's what we need.
Well said. On that, I will let everyone go, and we will see you next time on Human Potential at Work. Bye, everyone.
You've been listening to Human Potential at Work. To learn more about Rue Global Impact, visit rueglobal.com. And to learn more about Billion Strong, an identity and empowerment organization designed to bring the billions of voices of persons with disabilities together, you can join the global community and donate at billion-strong.org. That's billion-strong.org.